Welcome to Where's My Sports At? On today's podcast, we are lucky to be joined by the Warriorholic, Zane. Zane, really appreciate you coming along to have a chat with a couple of Warriors fans and love to hear your insights about the Warriors and rugby league in New Zealand. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks so much for having us on, guys. It's a real pleasure. It's a bit of a treat to be on the other side of the ledger for once. I'm usually the one doing the interview, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, cheers, Zane. Honoured to have you come along, mate. And I've been wanting to chat with you for a while, mate, and ask you a few questions because I always like to see what's the story behind the story, and you're another story behind that story. So let's crack into it. I'll start with our first question. So, can you tell us first and foremost what drew you to the game of rugby league?
Mate, I grew up in Upper Hutt back in the day, so I'm a 1970s boy. But during the 80s, there's a really strong domestic competition in New Zealand. Like we had the National Club Comp, and Upper Hutt Tigers were really strong back in the days with like Mike Kuiti and Sid Edu and the like. Yeah, Morven Edwards. So I'm actually from a place called Māori Bank. So shout out to Māori Bank boys. Morven Edwards lived around the corner from me. So I grew up looking at them, and then we, late 80s, the Winfield Cup sort of started to take off, and Morven went over to the Tigers. They wore the same jerseys as us. I sort of drifted into the Winfield Cup from there, having grown up a mad sports person in general. I played every sport you could imagine except football. But I was a union player, but I just got hooked on league, from about the mid to late 80s.
Mate, well, it's really good to hear that you're an Upper Hutt boy. Not that I'm from down there, but I'm a Mount Albert boy. So we were the Mount Albert Lions, and we always had a good rivalry in the, what was it back then? Was it Lion Red Cup back in the 80s?
That's it. Yeah.
And so hence why I know those guys. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah. And what drew you to the Warriors? So we all have our story. I'm an OG Warriors supporter, but were you an OG Warriors supporter?
Yeah. I've sort of mentioned this a few times that I didn't realize this until I started this Warriorholic thing and reflected on it. I'm a very transient fan. So I started at the Tigers and I loved the Gary Freemans, Paul Surinens, Blocker Roach, Gary Jack, all those guys. But as they started to retire, I drifted to Manly for a while there when Graham Lowe was there and all the Kiwi boys are there. I went to the Knights for a while because my uncle lives up near Newcastle, and we had a couple of Kiwi guys like John Schuster there. Same thing with like basketball. I started out the Lakers, went to the Bulls, and followed players. But with the Warriors, day one, as soon as it was announced, I was on board, and they were the Auckland Warriors back then, and I was from Upper Hutt. They should have been the enemy, but no idea. Never once in my time have I considered patching over to another team. So day one, all in always.
I feel you. I was the same, growing up in the 80s. We didn't have a team, so I think I went through whatever favourite Kiwi player was playing for that team became my team. It would have been the Roosters with Hugh McGahn, and then we had the Canberras and that sort of thing. But once, same thing, growing up in Auckland, playing rugby league as a kid in Auckland, we were just waiting for the Warriors to be birthed. And once they were, there was never another team, was there?
Well, the random thing was the first year I went to Japan, so I've spent over half my life here, about 25 years in total. I went in 95, halfway through the first season. So I'd have to get mum to send me VHSs of the games and stuff for the first few years until they started having, there's a thing called Across the Tasman that you could download torrents of the games. Then eventually the Fox, NRL Live app came out and stuff. So I followed them remotely for a very long time, which made it a bit challenging because I never got the interviews and the like. So Webby, I didn't even know I'd been at the club. So it was a pretty challenging experience, with the ups and downs of the Warriors and doing it from halfway across the world. Jimmy, how did you get into it, mate?
Oh, well, me, I started with old... I grew up in a little town called Parongia that look to the west and you get the best, so shout out to that lot. But I always loved my league, and we didn't have much out there. And then I was similar to you. I sort of started with following the Broncos because my bestie followed the Broncos, and then got into Manly because the Kiwi boys.
I'll let you away with that one. Bloody Broncos.
Yeah. They were good. They were good.
Alfie Langer,
good.
Yeah, Alfie Langer got me hooked just watching a little fella run around and terrorise teams, and then then all of a sudden I flicked to the Roosters for a bit, and I was in between the Roosters and the Warriors, and Craig's shaking his head because I was a big Roosters fan, and then all of a sudden, the Warriors, just one day I was thinking, actually, I need to get behind and support them, and I've been there ever since. So almost about 20 years now. Took me a while to twist my arm to come to the Warriors, but eventually I did, and I haven't looked back. So
you're only 20 years. That's why you got more hair than us. I've been in there since day one,
and
so
less
I
grey.
got none.
I have torn them out. I have torn them out a few times. The old hair out a few times. See little patches. No.
Yeah, mate.
Zane, what is your favourite year with the Warriors?
2023.
Really?
Oh,
Why?
yeah. Oh, mate, just every other year, it's just like it's felt like a year out of the blue. You know, you kind of, I don't know. It's just the first time in my career as a Warriors I felt something building that I felt like is sustainable. You know, and it started with the first interview of Webby, the clear, concise, consistent, logical message was the first time I'd really heard that from a Warriors coach. And then you see the execution and the continued growth throughout the season. And, you know, other years, they were great. But 2023, and to be back here and be a part of it for the first time, first game at Mount Smart, the Sharks game. And, 2023 will never be beaten in my mind unless we win a final.
Till this year, eh?
Until we get a final. Yeah, mate, incremental growth.
So with the Warriorholic, Zane, what got you inspired to start it? How did it come about?
Mate, it's a multifaceted, long story. One part of it is I've always wanted to do YouTube and but never felt, one, I had a face for TV, two, a voice for radio, and three, the technical nous to do it. So I was always looking for someone with all of the nous and so forth to basically say, let's make a podcast. You just turn up and talk shit. But that never eventuated. So I'd always had that thing in the back of my mind. And while I was in Japan, I moved back here at the end of 2018. And for about 3 or 4 years prior to that, Radio Sports started streaming on the iPhone. And I'd listen to the regulars talk on the radio, like the callers. And I really envy them because I talk in front of people for a job, but on the radio, live, I never had the confidence to do it. So I swore when I moved back to New Zealand, I'd get into that. COVID hits, Radio Sport gets shut down. I'm like, man. So when SENZ started out, I started calling them. I got into that. And then I realized we could stream SEN in Australia, which has all the league guys like Brandy and Vossi in the morning and Fletch and Joel in the afternoon. And as I listened to that, all the Australians call him with a handle. Like there's a guy, Pedro the Rooster or the Green Creeping Rooster or Paramat. So I thought, oh, geez, what am I going to call myself? So I called myself the Warriorholic for want of a better thing. And that sort of started to gain momentum. And then we got into 2022. And it was the year that the Warriors really started to struggle at the back end of COVID. And there was so much toxic abuse of players on social media. And I went through a couple of periods during COVID where I had to go to Japan. I was away from my family for months. And I knew how hard that was for my family and myself. And those guys had been there 2 years. And I was watching Sir Peter Leach. And he always brings this calm, probably, sometimes over positive. That fans, maybe think, he's like me living a dream world. But I thought, no, I've got to be that guy and try and counter some of this toxicity and get people to think about things from the player's perspective. So I thought, how do I do that? And I just started out on a few Facebook forums and then on, I think it was Twitter back in the day. But then it was right about now, I thought, bugger it, I'm going to try this on YouTube. And I got out the iPhone, literally pointed the front camera at me so I could see what I was doing, had no mic, and just spoke for about 10 minutes about what I saw in Webby that inspired me to believe that the Warriors were a completely different beast. And I think that's had about 7,000 views now on YouTube. But that was just it. I just thought it went from wanting to be a YouTuber, but also seeing slight digression here. Guys like Warriors Anonymous, Jared and the boys on there, they set up a really positive Facebook group. And I heard Jared talking on SENZ one day to Smithy. I thought, and they were doing the podcast, and I listened to their podcast. I'm like, man, if they can do it, I can do it. And that was it. Off she went. And I thought, man, if 5 people watch me, imagine that.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's a room of 5 people that'll not pay to watch you speak, but they'll come to watch you speak, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's and listen to your very valued opinion. And yeah, I've listened to a few of yours now, and I'm like, that's good, mate. That's good. I like the positivity. I think it's needed. Yeah.
My policy was passionate, positive, and balanced. So I have to try and provide objective feedback. And I figure if I'm going to start talking about the games, I can't just comment on a whim. So I'll always watch a game a second time before I'll give any type of feedback on it. Watching other guys who are more knowledgeable about the technical aspects of the game, how they were analysing certain things. And it became really fun because you go back and watch it the second time without the emotion, even after a game. And it's just kind of mind-blowing how much you learn, but you'll still have no idea at the level that the players are analysing the game. But I think it's close to 20,000 hours people have watched on my YouTube now, which is absolutely mind-blowing. What are they thinking?
Well, hey, well done to you, mate. Well done to you. So getting into the Warriors, you've talked about Webby a few times, but we know that's only one piece of the puzzle. There is the CEO, there is the coach, there is the supporting competitions, which is good that this year the Warriors have got more teams back in the supporting competitions. I think they've got 4 or 5 teams that are going to be playing, which is back in our heyday, which I see of like 2011, we had, multiple teams playing. Do you feel the Warriors have got all the pieces of the puzzle in place, in all those key positions? And do you feel then that this is the year, or is it still a building, which is something you mentioned earlier?
So it's kind of a multifaceted question. We've never actually had 5 teams. So now we have the Harold Matts, SG Ball, Jersey Flag, reserve grade, and the first grade team. So I think it's the first time I've had all 5, which basically means you're getting guys from as young as 16 who've got the pathways all the way through. We've got the women's coming next year as well. So that's the first time. But if I kind of look at the big turnaround is, I feel like Robbo bought the club with the right intentions. He's obviously a very successful man. Going through COVID there were a few things that happened, like with the Matt Lodge and that fans questioned. But I like the fact that him and Cam George never explained the background to it. They kept things internally, which is one thing about the Warriors. They don't leak. And I just sort of think, man, you've got to trust the guy. He's investing his family's livelihood in this. And once I got over that hurdle, he empowered Cam George to find the right guy, who was Webby, and then empowered Webby to put the right team around him. That now Robbo can sit back and let them run the club. And I'm sure he has input, but very few clubs have that structure in place because they're owned by leagues clubs, or they've got massive boards with, egos and so forth. So I think that's a huge credit to Robbo, to empowering the right people and allowing people with footy smarts and business smarts to run the business. So we've seen the Warriors in the past 12 months not only progress as a team, but sell out corporate packages months in advance. To this year, they've taken it to the next level by, bringing on board all of these new sponsors, Bailey's Real Estate, and to the pharmaceutical company, can't remember their name. You've got the likes of Dynasty coming in. You've got 1NZ. You can see the relationship there. So they've got the business side of it right as well. And I'm pretty sure they will have sold out all of the corporate things. So you've got the financials now to back it. But these pathways, you've got such a good structure. And I coach CEOs of very large companies, much bigger than the Warriors for a living. And I have not come across too many guys as smart as Cam George and Webby. So to see that, you can see that the structure in the organisation, the link between footy and the back office is really strong. But the thing that really excited me in 2021 is when you saw the SG Ball Boys play, they were playing the same type of football that Webby instilled in the first graders. So you could see that continuity throughout the club, which is why I love the 2023 year, because it's like the sleeping giant was awoken from every aspect. Long-winded answer, yeah, but there's so many parts of it that I look at from a business perspective that maybe most people don't realise that it gives me massive hope for where we're heading in the future. Now our biggest challenge is we have so much depth and so much talent. How you motivate these guys to stay, how you deal with the fact that we're going to lose a lot of them because you can't keep them all. Like Ronald Volkman, you can't have 5 top flight halves. It just doesn't make sense from a financial and a club perspective. So the success will breed its own challenges.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Like everything's going in the right direction, and it is cool to see, isn't it? Like, I'm hoping there we unearth a couple little superstars in these younger teams. I think we will. Which leads me into my next question for this year. With everything going so well, what's exciting you the most? Like, I'm hearing a lot of chatter about we're fitter. That excites me. We're stronger. We've got a better. I haven't heard we've got a new game plan, but hey, Webby will take care of it. And Webby we trust, right?
Well, it's again you watch the SG Bulls, Harold Matt's SG Bulls. They only put up one game, but they showed a few highlights. You just see the quality of players they've got in there. The halves, young Maui and Jesse Sorick, I think his name is, the halves combo for the SG Bull. Mate, they are quality players. So you see that All Black-like pathways coming through. But like you said, I'm excited to see that we repeat the same things we got right last year, which made us successful, which was we were extremely fit. We competed for 80. More often than not, we finished stronger than the opposition. Even some of the games we lost in, we were still competing against the likes of the Roosters and the Melbournes. The players we've lost, we've upgraded, in my opinion, on all of them.
Yeah.
So now what I want to see is that fitter, faster, stronger that Webby mentioned in his interview the other day, which is where we were a little bit behind the Broncos and the Panthers, if I'm honest, losing those collisions a little bit, getting that ball on the ground and playing it fast. So that's something they will have worked on. And the other thing that really excites me is the hint where RTS is playing on the left this week. Is he the key to unlocking that left-hand attack to the same level as the right, which was probably the best or close to the best in the competition last year? That means they can't just stack the opposition's right-hand side or our right-hand side, sorry, so the opposition's left-hand side, they could stack, knowing that we're doing those skip plays to Dallin. If you've got RTS on the left with Capewell, exciting.
Oh, it's giving me chills, eh? And seeing Capewell get signed for 3 years as well. I was worried about us losing Adam Whenua-Blake, and feel for him, having to go back to his family and all back in Sydney. But there's bright things ahead. And what do you reckon? Have we got Braden Hamuelu?
The thing I question about that is, if you look at all of our big signings over the years, how many of them did we know about in the media weeks in advance? So I'm not 100% sure. Look, there's questions about it. People talked about a figure of 700,000, which seems high, but you've got the new salary cap. But there's probably 2 or 3 quality props available for next season, and he's definitely one of the 3. So is he the man right now? No, but if he's webbed up like what Andrew Webster's done to guys like Jackson Ford, and the like, how he's brought out the best in them, he could be a good option. But you'll see we without anyone knowing, we signed that guy, Tony Tupanua. 1.94 m tall, as big as Tohu height-wise, looks like a specimen. He plays prop. Zion Maiu coming through. I just sat there and watched us play a couple of the cup games from last year. Tom Ali still got a lot to offer. If they can get Bunty to start getting that little shimmy at the line, I think they'll find a way to overcome that. But to get back to your question, is this year our year? I think it is our window. We drop out of that the year after. once we lose SJ and a couple of other players, Tohu, once he drops out, we might be building unless we sign externally. So it's all in this year. I can tell you they won't have $1 to spend in the cap at the end of the year.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. And thank you for providing that context about what you do, because I've watched your videos and I've wondered, where your knowledge comes from. But having, what you were saying about you've coached CEOs of larger organizations in the Warriors gives me that faith, that what you're saying about Cam George, because I think in the past, CEO has been a troubling position for us, and it's caused a lot of undoing of the Warriors. And for me, it's a little bit deja vu. What I was feeling last year, I felt in 2011 and 2002 as well. And when we had the NYC or Toyota Cup or what it was back then, I think we are the most successful club in that competition. 4 finals, 3 finals wins. So while part of me really wants to believe that this is our time, it's a little bit deja vu because we've been here before, we've been in this fantastic positions, and then it's all imploded through other reasons. But hearing that from you, it's raised a bit of my confidence level. So definitely awesome. Thank you.
Wasn't too close to them back then, and I don't know from personal experience, but there were questions around the alignment between what John Ackland was looking to achieve with the juniors versus what the first grade team were trying to do. And if you've got people working against each other within an organisation, I'm not talking about fighting because they don't like it, they're just different mindset. It's not going to work, but they've got a very clear, concise and simple vision that is cascaded down through that organisation, and they do not recruit anyone now who doesn't fit that ethos. And I don't know why, but we saw a clear example that someone obviously wasn't delivering on that expectation, who was the SG Ball coach last year, who's no longer our SG Ball coach this year, coached the Māori yesterday. They make changes when they needed to keep people in that alignment, and that's the key. You can't have people working against each other. So I do think it's much more sustainable than in the past.
And there's a lot of egos in that role in the past. We've had some pretty big people in those positions, from day dot. And it's almost, that they were the star of the team, not the team themselves at times.
And that's the difference with Webby, right? If you look Webby, it's not about him. And you can tell when someone's pretending it's not about them and someone who does. Genuinely, you can just see the passion and excitement from empowering others to be successful. And that empathy and that selflessness, you can see the players. Like every time I do an interview, they say proactively, I don't want to let Webby down. It's not like they're worried that he's going to be angry. They just don't want to let him down because they know that he cares about them. There's not the egos there. Like you say, there's not the personalities.
Yeah, I was finding myself last year, and I don't know if you did the same, Zane and Craig, with every time Webby was in a press conference, I was finding myself downloading the press conference and watching it just to hear Webby talk. Like, I've never had that from a Warriors coach or a coach in general before. And now, after each game, I'm like, what's he say about this? And even if we lost by 1 point or we won by 1 point, I wanted to hear what he had to say, just because he's just so intelligent and so articulate with what he talks about. Were you finding that as well last year, or was it just me?
No, mate. The word articulate, like I said, it's clear and concise, and former coaches. Well, as I said, well, it's about well, the boys did exactly. What was the question again? Whereas Webby uses practical terminologies that anyone can understand. He's consistent. And for me, it's the look when him and Tohu look in each other's eyes. You can see the love. It's like, those guys are just so happy to be in each other's company. And you can see when he's irritated and pissed off about a decision, he doesn't get into it. He doesn't make it about, he'll always say, we didn't deliver this. Forget about the external factors. He has never once blamed an external factor. And to me, that excites me.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to see last year. It changed my attitude because I'm quite the negative when it comes to the refs. I'm like, but as soon as Webby started doing that, I was like, okay, better change.
Yeah, he's like Ted Lasso without the toxic positivity.
I haven't seen that yet. I've been hanging out to get it, but I don't. It's not on Netflix. I have to try and find it sometime.
Yeah, it's
Worth a watch.
pretty good, eh? The Be a Goldfish I love. Like, Goldfish has got a 3-second memory, forgets as soon as it happens, and he told that to one of his players. And I was like, it's a good ethos to have.
It's not easy to do, but it's good. I think the closest comparison, like people compare him to NRL coaches, but I don't think we've necessarily seen the likes of him before, because you'll get those guys who are extremely, man management focused, and then they leave the technical stuff to someone else. Then you've got the ultra technical guys like Sebo who overwhelm people. Wayne Smith is a guy that pops into my mind. They call him the professor from the fact that he can analyze a game in a crazy way. But a friend of mine, Dave Dillon, he was working with he coached for Kobe Steelers in Japan, who were sitting on the bottom of the ladder for years, and he went in there as a first-time head coach and had Wayne Smith with him as head of football, and they took that club to back-to-back titles in their first 2 years. And he just said it was about how Wayne helped him adjust these little things that strengthen the culture. So, for example, where do you start with team culture? And they said it was about the smell of the changing room, the music that was on that makes it familiar in a place that when you walk into a coffee shop that you used to go to, and you have that smell and it takes you back and you feel comfortable. It started with little things like that. So I think that's kind of like the closest comparison, without having met either of the guys, is Webby and Wayne Smith.
So looking forward to this season, who do you reckon's going to break out for the Warriors? Do you have any rookies there that are going to come through and hit the season, mate?
Oh, mate, how long's the list? It's so difficult. I just went back, and if anyone's out there and they want to get a look at these young guys who are about to come onto the field tomorrow, go to the New South Wales Rugby League Facebook group, click on events, and scroll down, and you'll see a game the Warriors played against the Panthers in about September last year, and another one against Canberra. And I'm going to put up a couple of highlights. There's one of them is one set that we received the ball from a kick, and basically on our try line, Tom Ali, followed by Dimitrik Sifikula, followed by Leka Halasima, followed by Kalani going, followed by Tanner Stowers-Smith. Unfortunately, Ronald Volkman puts a kick across. He's gone. Setutu takes it. Amazing inside step, and then flicks it off to Kalani going. Go back and have a look at these young guys coming through, the quality in our New South Wales Cup, particularly the fringe guys, Ali Leotaua, Paul Roach and Kalani going, Dimitrik Sifikula, who got their debuts last year, but also the development players. You've got Zion Mayu, you've got Jacob Laban, Tanner Stowers-Smith, Patrick Moimoi, Ben Farr, Etuate Fukovka. A lot of people haven't heard of him. Imagine Piriwepu, ex-league halfback who can run over the top of people. He'll put a chip and chase on. He can kick goals. He's got the best pass in the whole Warriors franchise, in my opinion. Union halfback pass. You've got, who else have we got there? Alcacetino on the wing, and Leo Garcia Kali, who's kind of on the fringe there. All of these guys are just absolute athletes. And when I talked to Jazz at the start of this year, just to get a gauge on the pre-season, he just said he's astonished at the power and the physicality of these young guys. He said he never had that at his age. So to pick one of those, I would say Ali Leotaua is going to be an absolute superstar. So if you go back and watch the game I just mentioned against the Raiders, imagine the best comparison I could give would be Latrell. The one-handed passes, the power is phenomenal. But then you've got a guy in Patrick Moimoi, who's another centre coming through, played SG ball last year. His arms are bigger than my thighs. And Ben Farr reckons he was the guy who stood out in training this year. You look at Ben Farr, no one really knows who he is, but he won a Q Cup under-21s comp basically on the back of him playing with a rolled ankle at fullback, just running the game. I can't pick any of them, to be honest. And then you've got, how do you stop a guy like Rocco Berry, the progression he had? So, yeah, if I'm picking two, I'm saying Zion Mayu and Ali Leotaua.
I'm fully with you on Zion Maiu and Aliatau. I've been loving watching Zion's. I felt there that when he was playing New South Wales Cup last year, he was doing too many runs, and when a young prop is too enthusiastic, and he was interjecting himself too much into games where he just needed to pick his times, get a bit fitter, get a bit stronger, because he was only like 19.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that. I was like, how big is this human being going to become?
And he's not huge. He's only like 105 or 108 kg, so he's still got a lot of filling out to do. But the one that I think really surprised me was Dimitri Sifakula. So last year, after the Tigers trial, we dominated them, and everyone was talking about Jacob Laban and Zaya Maiu. And I don't know if you remember Webby in the post-match. He said, yeah, they're okay, but Dimitri Sifakula was outstanding, and I didn't really remember him playing. And then he got his debut. But after that, when you went and watched him go back to Cup and he'd filled out, he was a beast. And if you watch him in that game, the games I was just talking about, man, that boy, and Jacob Laban is huge as well. That guy's a monster.
Yeah, it's interesting with Queensland Cup because not Queensland Cup, with New South Wales Cup, and you watch them then go into playing the NRL and starting like Kalani Going, for example. I thought he was tiny, and then all of a sudden I see him in the NRL and I'm like, hold on a second, this dude's actually pretty big, and he's pretty skilled. So it's crazy, like how New South Wales Cup, like thinking how big these dudes are.
Yeah. I mean, Kalani Going's not huge, and neither is Tanner Stowers Smith. But think, what's his name? Adi Sevilla. He's not the biggest number 8 in the world. It's just that some people have natural power, and Kalani Going is one of those. And he's a guy who drifted out of my radar over the off season because you didn't see him much in the footage. But going back and watching those 2 Cup games, he dominated. And if you watch, I'll put up this reel in a couple of hours of that one set where they ended up getting the try, and watch his run. It's just the power of him is phenomenal. So, and I think we had some of the biggest boys in Cup last year. And Ed Cossey is one of the biggest humans you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah. I love his story too. During COVID, he was working in a warehouse and they offered him a contract. I was blown away by that.
I feel like I have to be the voice of reason here. We're hearing, there's all this, once again, deja vu. We've been here before. We've dominated at the lower levels. We've been fantastic in the New South Wales Cup. And we've always had so much talented youth, but that doesn't always translate to first grade. First grade's a different beast. And we spoke with a golf pro recently, and there's a tournament called the Corn Ferry, which just sits below PGA. And he said the guys in the Corn Ferry are more talented generally than the guys in the PGA, but the PGA is a mental game. So I think that's sometimes the difference between New South Wales Cup and the top tier is the week in, week out playing at that level. So natural talent gets you to the New South Wales Cup and may get you a start, but it doesn't always translate across. So I think you're right in what the players you're picking out, because that'll be the difference of who lasts in the top league. And, go back to what you're saying as well, I love that we've got the 5 teams now, because for so long our junior league was just getting poached over to Sydney, and I think some of our actual rugby league unions have signed agreements with clubs. I think Canterbury Rugby League has signed one with one of the clubs in
Bulldogs.
Sydney to be like a pathway, which is wrong on so many levels. So I think it's good. We're going to be having more players there by the time they get to New South Wales Cup, and by the time they get to the Premier League, they're going to be more conditioned for the mental game, because that's always been the difference with the Aussie guys. They come through from a young age at these elite competition levels from a young age, and they're mentally prepared for the top league, which is an area that I've sort of felt that we've struggled with in the past.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've always said one of my bugbears of the Warriors is recruiting players who've dominated at high school rugby union or high school rugby league because of their physical attributes. And they've come into Tui Lolohea would be a classic example. That guy was more talented than almost half the guys in the comp, but he just didn't have the work ethic. Kevin Locke, unfortunately, didn't quite have the mindset. But we've seen Ronald Volkman move on. That guy, for me, I looked at him cup and I thought, man, this guy's got something. Gets a couple of shots at first grade, and clearly Webby had already seen this guy doesn't quite have it. And every time you hear him recruit, he'll talk about the fact that this person, the mental attributes. So I think that 4 layers of filter, that by the time he identifies someone to go in the cup into first grade, they'll be ready. But we've got really excited about the young players over the past 10 minutes, and me getting so hyped up, having spent this morning looking at them. But again, you look at what we've got there existing in terms of experience and quality in our first grade team, which is going to make it really difficult for these young players to make it in. That's what excites me. A guy like Marcelo Montoya, for example, I thought he had a great year last year and was exposed on the edges a lot due to what happened inside him, but there wasn't much we could do because Ed Cossey was injured with a knee for most of the season, so there wasn't that pressure on him. But now you've got 3 or 4 guys they're putting pressure on them. You've got at fullback now, you've got CNK, who's your man, but then you've got RTS, then you've got Tane Tuopiki, you've got Ben Farr, who's actually a fullback. You've got Setu too, as an absolutely outstanding fullback and a wing as well. Then you've got this young guy, Pasikala, the fullback for SG Ball. God knows who's going to come up through Flegg. Every position now, other than halfback for me, is the one that we don't really have that. Definitely this guy's going to be the man coming through. So it puts pressure on these older players to maintain their standard. And there's probably, Adam Fanua-Blake, Wade Egan, SJ are the 3 main ones for me that we would really struggle to fill their gaps if they were injured. I think even Tohu this season, we've got these young guys who can step up.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, because like Tohu's position always worries me because it's a double-edged sword. You've got what he does on the field and plus leadership, and you lose that. That's a massive hole to fill, and how much longer does he go?
Yeah, but again, you've got Kurt Capewell there now, who that's basically the only reason the Broncos recruited them. And look at the season they had when they got him and Reynolds there, where you put 2. He might not be as flashy as Curran, but it's just that leadership you bring there. You've got RTS there, former club captain, so there's not all that pressure on Tohu. I mean, I think you've got that extra year of guys who've developed and can actually cover Tohu in a different way. But from the sounds of it, he's talking like, he's bandaged a lot, but a lot of that's preventative. If he's signing for another year beyond next year, you've got to think he's rating himself to deliver it.
You mentioned TMM. I felt they brought him back too early from injury at the end of last year because we needed him, because he just wasn't, not maligning the guy, but I felt he was a bit of a passenger because he was undercooked when they brought him back. What's your inside word this year about how he's going?
So, and Jazz said the same about himself. He didn't think he should have been there for the finals, but they obviously just felt like they needed that experience. We tend to forget what Tamati brought to that left-hand side early last year. And I struggled, again, this was my first season of doing this, and I had to go back and why do people rate him so much? Because you don't see him doing a lot. But if you go back to the round 1 game against the Knights last year and slow it down and watch backwards and forwards, he's the guy making those effort plays to get back in a covering tackle, tidy up a loose ball, putting guys through subtle gaps. So his ball distribution is leagues above Metcalf. So the inside word I got from someone who said, even within the camp, they don't know. But the inclination was that Webby may likely go with Tamati Martin, because even you look at him last night, he might not have dominated, but you're not looking for him to stand out and be that creator if you've got SJ there. And then on that side, you've got Capewell most likely with RTS. So I think he may get the first nudge, but I really like the idea of Chanel because of the time he's had with RTS. They'll have that understanding already. But then you've got Metcalf speed. Oh, shit.
Yeah. And that's one thing. Our speed can't be coached.
Yeah.
Can't be coached.
But his passing and his distribution can be. So that's what I'm excited to see. Last year's first instinct was to step off the left and come right away from his support. If he can get that, that delivery to start going left and open up, because Montoya scored a lot of tries in the first half of the season last year and then got bugger all in the second half, right?
That's right.
But that was also Braden Williami. No one realised how good he was at distribution as well. So it's that combinations of how they link together and put the players away. And I just really want to see that left side opened up. Did you guys go to the Knights game last year?
I live
the
in
final.
Watched it.
Yeah. So watching that live was kind of interesting that people were getting nervous that the Warriors had lost momentum at the start of the second half. But when you're watching it live, you could just see they were playing within themselves. They were absorbing tackles, letting the Knights just throw everything at them to try and get back in the game. We just absorbed. And then as soon as that opportunity switched, boom, we could accelerate, we could lift the speed and intensity and then just close the game out. And I think that's something the Warriors have never been able to kind of switch that momentum back as easily through process. It was always through one X factor move, and you're always relying, those years of RTS being the only guy in the team, really. It's like all else fails, throw it to RTS and see if he steps 10 people to get a try. That excites me. Able to control, play within themselves. And I feel like watching last night, Jazz was probably playing at 75, 80%. Did you guys watch the Indigenous game?
A bit.
Yeah, a little
There's
bit.
no way he was playing 100. He was doing it, but you could see he was playing within himself, that he's going to make a big year this year. And he sort of said to me he's got to learn to play within himself because he tries to play 110 and that's when he gets injured. But I'm looking forward to see him take it that step up when he gets back as well. So what are you expecting tomorrow, guys? First game of the season with the preseason. What?
Well, excited to see Metcalf and Chanel Harris-Tavita paired together and RTS and centre. When I looked at the squad, I'm like, far out, this isn't even full strength. How good.
Yeah. And they're up against a strong team because Tigers don't have a game round one. So they've got a lot of graders out there to try and get some air in the lungs early. But I want to see single-figure errors.
Yeah.
I think too often we got up over 12, 13 errors in a game, and you can't turn over that much ball. So I want to see us, be patient, not throw things like Webby empowers people to have a go when it's on, but not panic, throw those silly balls. And I don't want to see guys kind of stop chasing or tries through laziness. If they put on a genuine shape and the try gets through, so be it. But I don't want to see tries coming in through lack of effort. And I want to see single-figure errors with a group of guys who's not our top team. If I can see that, excitement.
Yeah, confidence in the next man up, eh?
Look to Kalani going to be a standout tomorrow. Look to that guy to stand up and say, hey, actually, that guy could be the next Tohu and could be a captain. Excellent. I just think, he's 26, 27 now. He's been in Union during that COVID break. He's got that in him to come back and give it that second shot. And just watch him again. I think he offers a lot more than people realise. He might not be the flashiest. So I'm smoky for you to have a close to man in the match performance tomorrow. Kalani going.
Nice.
Big engine on that kid, eh?
Okay. I'm going to ask one more question. What's your prediction for position this year? I've told mine. Teams? I think they're going number one. Don't the Warriors? Where are they going to finish?
The finish. You mean the regular season or are they going to win the grand final?
Go for both. I'm picking. I'm going to go with what SportsSpeed said. I'm going to say they're going to finish first, and will they win the grand final? Why not throw the kitchen sink? They're going to win the whole thing. Do it for SJ.
I'm going to say, this is so much to do with. I think this year's on paper is going to be even more competitive than last year. So a lot of this comes down to attrition and injuries. And let's just make a prediction where, average amount of injuries and so forth. And no, we're not going to get killed like some clubs like Manly got last year. I'm going to go second in the regular season because I'm being realistic. And I think we've learnt a lot about finals football this year, getting to play 3 games in finals footy, and you've got to lose one to win one. I think the Broncos, a lot of people expect them to take this massive step up, but if you look at the history over the past 20 years, the team who comes second in the grand final very rarely comes back and does better the next year. The Panthers are the exception to the rule there. You look at Power of the year before, where did they go to? So, and they've lost 2 key guys in Flegler and Farnsworth, and they've lost Capewell. So you look at the Panthers, they've lost a couple of very solid players. So I think they come back to the pack where, like I said, we've leveled up in every way in the players we've lost. So it really comes, East, can they get things to click? Because they've got an outstanding team. Can Tom Travojevic stay fit? There's a lot of factors, but I think second, and I think if we can make a grand final, there's no reason we can't win it with the talent we've got. If we put our best team on the field or close to it on the day, I think we've got it. I'll be there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. As soon as tickets come out, I'm buying them.
I had them last year.
Even if we're not there.
I had them last year, and I won a $200 sports bet on SEN and put it all on the Warriors to win against the Broncos, which would have paid for my whole trip to go to the grand final. But unfortunately. But that's okay. I knew it wasn't a one and done last year, so I'm excited.
Yes, they're building.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw my little smoky out there. I reckon they're going to qualify 4th, but then I think they're going to build momentum going to the grand final. And there's one team I care about beating this year because every year it's done my head in. I want them to smoke Melbourne, and I reckon we're going to do that this year. That's the big one for me because I'm sick of building up the hype. I know we're not playing them in Anzac Day this year, but I know this year I reckon we're going to beat them twice, and that's one of the things that I care about most because I'm sick of losing to Melbourne. Anyway,
Melbourne and Brisbane, mate. I'm on you with those two.
Yeah.
Well, have you had a look at the draw? We've got a pretty good draw this year. So I think that's going to aid us in our progression through the table to where we sit at the end of the year and making the 8. I think, okay, we're sounding cocky now, aren't we? I think we're a shoo-in for the final series. Like you said, Zane, we've got that experience and we're hungry. We didn't finish second and full of self-doubt. We're still hungry. We know there's more we can give. And a good favourable draw will get us through to the finals. And as James said, in Webby we trust.
Webbed up, baby. Webbed up.
Yep. Build the statue. In front of Mount
Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Future Prime Minister.
Awesome, Zane. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us today, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we hope to have more chats with you over the season because, mate, we'll go to the grand final and let's do a bit of a boys trip, eh?
Oh, 100%, guys. Thanks for having me. You see how I never stop talking when I get going about the Warriors, so it's nice you guys got a little bit of a chance to speak. But look forward to catching up over the years. It's just, that's what's been one of the most fun things about getting into this year is building connections with people like yourself who are passionate, who want to get and put themselves out there and, share a voice for the fans rather than just, throwing out an off-the-cuff comment on Facebook. So well done to you guys for doing it as well. I love the fact you're, passionate enough to share the love over a whole bunch of sports where I'm pretty much, my energy's on the Warriors and I don't have a lot to spare for others. So thanks again, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Total pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.